Hey everyone, this is Steliafty with Closeout, and in today's video I'm going to talk about what should you do or what to do when somebody hangs up on you, right? So I get this question fairly often, and today I thought I'll just share that advice with all of you out there. People constantly send me messages and ask me, Steli, today twice it happened, somebody hung up on me and I feel horrible. What do you do when somebody hangs up on you, when you do sales calls? My typical advice is, probably now is the time to consider suicide, right? I mean, life really doesn't have any meaning anymore. It's really over. I don't think that your career is going anywhere. This hanging up thing is a really bad signal, bad sign. But in all seriousness, I think that people just overreact when they get hung up on. And so I want to talk a little bit about this, my philosophy, my thinking around it, and what kind of advice I give to people and how to deal with this. First of all, I think philosophically it's really important to understand that if you don't pick up the phone and you don't call someone, and if you call somebody and they hang up on you, the end result is the same, right? Back in the day where it was still physical phones, it's just a phone sitting there not doing anything. It's still the same result in terms of you haven't sold that person anything. So the worst result, the hang up, in reality, the worst thing that could ever happen, like somebody hanging up on you, is the same result as if you've never picked up the phone to begin with. This is a really important thing to remember and remind yourself of when you're making sales calls in general. Now, there's a few different scenarios in which somebody can hang up the phone on you, and they do matter, right? Context truly matters. A lot of people get hung up on the phone when they make cold calls. So it's the first call is the prospecting call. You're calling somebody, he doesn't expect your call, does not know you or wasn't asking for this call. So by the time they realize that you're a salesperson, maybe they interact one or two sentences back and forth and eventually they just hang up on you. That's probably the most common scenario, but people hang up in sales conversations in all different types of scenarios, right? You can get hung up on in negotiations, right? Somebody goes back and forth with you on pricing, has really strong objections, and eventually in the middle of the conversation gets more and more agitated, angry, and hangs up on you. Or it's in the follow-up, right? You had a few conversations with that person, they go silent, you send a bunch of emails, you make a bunch of calls, and eventually they pick up, and once they hear it's you, they hang up. Right? Ooh, that hurts usually. But there's different scenarios, and we're going to cover a bit of all of them. But there's a few reasons why somebody hangs up while they're in the middle of a conversation with you. You need to understand all these reasons, and depending on the reason, your reaction should be different. Number one, and this is the one reason where you carry all of the responsibility and where you should get concerned a little bit and pay attention a lot, is when people hang up on you, not on the first call, but once you had a conversation already, and they hang up out of frustration because you're a shitty listener, right? Sometimes some people in sales, I know it's not you, it's definitely not me, but some people in sales are so concerned about talking, they're never really listening. And so the prospect is asking the same question again and again, or tries to make the same point again and again and again. And eventually they get so frustrated that in their mind they decide, you know what, this is a waste of time. This person's not listening. This person's not giving me the information I want. This sucks. I'm just going to hang up. I tried to ask this person multiple times. They never responded. Or they felt really disrespected. A lot of times that happens because salespeople interrupt their prospects, right? So you talk. You ask them a question, they start trying to give you an answer, and you interrupt them and you keep talking, right? You're just super rude. You're not listening. You're not letting them finish their thoughts, and eventually they get so frustrated and they're just over it, so they hang up. If that's the reason, you suck and you need to figure it out, right? And I'll tell you how to get behind what the reason is why they hang up and how to improve on it. But you should ask yourself, are people constantly frustrated when they talk to you? Is frustration a part of your daily communication life, right? Is that a reaction you get in family, with friends, with people day in, day out? Because if it is, it's you, right? You know that joke when you meet an asshole in the morning, you just met an asshole, but if you meet an asshole in the morning, in the evening, in the afternoon, you're probably the asshole, right? If everybody has this problem, then you're the problem. And so make sure that you correct that, improve your communication skills, and make sure that if you want to have a career in sales, that you don't constantly frustrate others because you talk over them, you don't listen to them, and you don't care about their responses. Eventually, people will just give up and hang up. But that's actually a really rare reason. Even with all the shitty salespeople that exist out there in the world, it's not something that I find is most commonly the reason why people hang up. The most common reason people hang up, the most important reason people hang up, is it's a defense mechanism. They hang up. You think they hang up because it's like an emotional punch in your stomach, right? This is how it feels to most salespeople. When somebody hangs up on you in the middle of a conversation, it's like somebody, taking a really wild swing, at your stomach, or even further down south between your legs, and you just like, it sucks the air out of your system, and you're like, oh my God, somebody just emotionally punched me. They disrespected me, they spit at me in the face, I'm not important, I'm a failure. It feels really horribly to most salespeople emotionally. But if you really analyze why somebody's hanging up, it's not because they want to punch you in the face or punch you in the stomach. That's the reason we covered initially. But it's because they are afraid. It's not punching, it's not fight, it's flight. When they hang up, they're giving up. They're so concerned that you're going to sell them something. They're so concerned that they're not going to be in control of the conversation, in control of their own body, mind, and soul, in control of their own decision making, that because they're not confident, they can finish up the conversation and tell you, listen, I'm not interested in this, but I wish you a great day. Because they don't have the confidence and they're not comfortable enough to reject you or to give you an objection or to tell you no. They hang up. They're fleeing, they're running from you, they're running from the conversation. Emotionally, they're afraid of you. They realize, this is a salesperson, and they think, I don't want to be sold anything, so they hang up. Think about that. Like, it's a totally different dynamic. They're running away from you, they're not punching you, right? They're truly afraid, and it's usually like a mechanism to overcompensate for that fear. They don't know how to speak to you, how to get rid of you. They are afraid that you might manipulate them, influence them. They don't feel empowered enough to communicate with you on a level where they could just tell you to fuck off, hence they hang up, right? So that is important to understand and realize, because it means it's not really you being such a big failure. It's not really you being so shitty or sucking at what you do. It doesn't say anything about you. It just says a lot about them, and it's not that they are bad. They just probably had a bunch of bad experiences in their life in terms of people selling them things they didn't want to buy and regret it afterwards, that once they get a deja vu kind of moment with somebody, they just want to run. They just want to hang up and make sure there's no danger of them being influenced by you. Further down in a conversation, if you already had a number of calls and this is a true prospect and you're trying to like negotiate a deal, sometimes people hang up as a negotiation tactic, right? They'll hang up on you as a way to display power, as a way to communicate to you that they can walk away from this deal. It's very, very rare, but it's very disruptive, right? Because it's so rare, it will have an impact on a lot of people. So you're in negotiation, they go back and forth with you, eventually they hang up. Just again, realize that it's in that case, if it's somebody you've qualified, they've spent a reasonable amount of time with you and you with them hanging up, it's just a tactic. It's just the way they play the game. It doesn't mean anything, right? It's not a big deal. And this is the weirdest reason, but again, it happens once in a while. And because salespeople overreact, it's important to realize sometimes it's just by mistake. People push the wrong button. People have bad receptions and calls drop. I've seen this before once where a salesperson made a huge deal out of somebody hanging up on them, and then it turned out that person called them back, thankfully, and apologized profusely because they just by mistake, their cheek hit the red button and they hung up. They didn't mean to hang up. So sometimes you just need to be lighthearted. Some calls get disconnected. It's not always, it's not always has not always anything to do with you, and it doesn't always mean that the person consciously made the effort to disconnect the conversation. Now, what do you do? Okay, so these are all the reasons why people hang up. This is the scenarios people hang up. Now, what the hell do you do with all this information? Well, number one, and my number one tip on this is don't overthink this. Just relax. It doesn't matter. It's not that big of a deal. As I said earlier, if you hadn't called them, the result would have been the exact same. In reality, the phone would be off and you would not be speaking to them right now. So the worst that could have happened, is not that bad, and somebody hanging up on you is not the end of the world. It just happens. Actually, if you're in sales and nobody ever hung up on you, you're not doing your job, right? You're not hustling enough. You're not out there reaching out to people that are kind of at the edge of being interested or not being interested. If you're not negotiating in a way with once in a while somebody hangs up on you, it means you're not taking enough risks. So having people hang up on you is a healthy thing in sales. It's not the end of the world when you're on phone calls. Now, what I would suggest you do if somebody hangs up on you for the first time is you just do the simplest thing imaginable. Call them back. Just call them back. Hey, somebody hung up on me. I'm like, I don't know what happened. Let me call back. We're in the middle of a conversation. I assume we should continue. And there's different ways that you can go about it. You can call and say, hey, I think we just lost the connection, right? So assuming that they didn't even hang up on you, that probably something accidentally disconnected the conversation. Or you could call and just say, hey, I think you accidentally hung up. Let's continue the conversation. Oh, I think something happened and the call got disconnected. Hey, I think you might have accidentally hung up on me. Let's continue the conversation. Where were we? Right? So now, and the important thing is that it doesn't really matter what you say so much when you call somebody back. Again, it's all about how you feel. If you can deliver the lines with a smile on your face, if you're relaxed, confident, and comfortable, because that, again, because that is so rare, because most people, once they got hung up on, either they crawl up in a corner and they cry, or when they call back with like an apologetic kind of like, oh my God, or an overly aggressive, like, whoa, why did you hang up on me? Nobody hangs up on me. But because people react so strongly and emotionally to being hung up on, if you call and you're just like, hey, I think some accident happened, let's continue the conversation. Hey, I think we just got disconnected. I'd love to ask you this one question before I let you go. You can ask the question in your voice that can feel that you're relaxed, you're leaning back, you're confident, and you have clarity on how the conversation continues. More often than not, you'll be surprised. People will just continue talking to you. They'll be surprised by your reaction and influenced by that in a way that makes them go, oh, maybe I should answer this question. This person seems surprisingly confident in a situation where he or she should feel aggressive or apologetic. So just call them back, right? And if some people announce that they hang up on you, I'm hanging up now. So just call back and go, hey, thank you so much for letting me know that you hung up and that this wasn't accidental, but I don't want you to regret this. I think that we should continue the conversation. I have just 2 more questions before we both have all the information we need to have to really make an educated decision how to move forward. I don't want you to regret this moment at some point. So let me ask you this. How many people do you have in this position? And then you just continue the conversation. You just tell them, hey, I don't want you to regret this, so let's just finish the conversation. So there's 2 more questions, I'll let you go on with your day. But if you have the answers to these questions, you and I are going to be able to make better decisions. Right? Just call them back and clarify that, even if they announce that they wanted to hang up on you. The other thing is, if they don't pick up the phone, which is a good amount of people, if they're really hung up on you, you call them, they're not picking up again. Again, they're afraid. They're running away from the conversation. That's what happens. Send them a text message or send them an email. Same kind of format, very simple. Hey, I think we got disconnected. Hey, I don't want you to regret hanging up on me. Here's 2 more. Let's continue the conversation in email or in SMS. Here's 2 questions I have. If we have the answers to those, we can move on with life. And then the most important thing, and this is my final piece of advice to you, when somebody hangs up on you, the most important thing is really not are you calling them? Are you sending an email? Are you sending a text message? Are you calling the next lead if you're like cold calling through a list? Are you doing this or doing that? The most important thing is that you take immediate and massive action. Most people, when somebody hangs up on them, what they want to do is they want to take a break. They want to curl up in a corner and cry. They want to take a smoke break. They want to watch a YouTube video. They want to walk around and disrupt other people in the sales room. You won't believe what just happened. Some asshole hung up on me. Like, you want to just like share the bad news with as many people as possible, so they stop making sales calls, stop making money, and they stop empathizing with you and feeling horribly about their job and life in general as well. Don't do any of this shit. Right? When somebody hangs up on you, the best thing you can do is pick up the phone and make the next call. Either call this person again or call the next person. When you fall off the metaphorical horse, you get up again and you get on it. That's the best thing you can do as quickly as possible. The delta X, the time it takes you from somebody hanging up on you to taking the next enthusiastic call, the shorter that time frame is, the bigger your chances of success in sales. This is a skill to be mastered. When people are emotionally punched in the face and in the stomach and in the nuts, can you keep moving forward with enthusiasm, with excitement, with passion, and with purpose? If you can, you'll succeed in sales. And nobody loves this. It's a skill. It's something you have to train yourself to do. It's something you have to teach yourself to overcome. When somebody hangs up on me, it doesn't feel great. I'm not like laughing. I'm not enjoying it. I'm not feeling joy. I don't have like an endorphin rush when somebody hangs up on me. But it just happened so many times, and I know it's not the end of the world. I know it means nothing about me. So I'll feel bad for like a second, and then I'll tell myself to shut the fuck up and make the next call. And that's really the only thing that you can do, and the only thing worth doing. When somebody hangs up on you, make the next call and move on with life. If they say no to you and they don't want to talk to you, it doesn't mean you can't talk to people. It just means you can't talk to that person right now. So let's find the person that wants to talk to you and that you can talk to and make business with. All right, this is it for me. I'd love to hear your stories on being hung up on and all the different scenarios, your lessons learned. If you have tactics, share it in the comments. Make sure to go to blog.close.io if you haven't already, and subscribe to our blog twice a week. Highly tactical and strategic advice on sales, startups, and entrepreneurship. And if you ever want to get in touch with me directly, just shoot me an email at stelly@close.io. Now let's go and get them.